Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another stream. This is a special Saturday night stream. For some reason that I can't quite figure out, the stream that I did yesterday isn't showing up on Twitch, although it does show that I did stream yesterday. It just does not load the video, no matter what I do. And so I wanted to restream this so that everyone who wants to can see it, and so that I can download it later and add it to the playlist on the YouTube channel. And so we'll get straight into it. This evening we are going to discuss the pen tool. Now, the pen tool is a tool that's commonly found in many of your vector-based editing software such as Illustrator. You might see it in Photoshop, definitely. You'll also find it in Sketch, Adobe XD, as well as GIMP, and it's been a staple of the vector-based design software for quite a while now. And I mentioned yesterday that I had been putting this one off for quite a bit. I was never sure that I was able to adequately explain how the pen tool works, but having done adequate research and all that good stuff, I think that I am reasonably confident that I can do a good job of pulling the stream off. And so with Figma open, we can activate, or we can select the pen tool by finding it up here in the toolbar. It is the icon is that of a fountain pen nib, and it lives between the shape tools and the text tool, and we see that we have a keyboard shortcut here. We can also press P to activate the pen tool. And it changes your cursor as well to the fountain pen nib, and we see the white circle with the blue outline, and that lets us know that wherever we click on the canvas, we will add a node or an anchor point if you're used to using Illustrator, or just simply a point. And if we go ahead and click once, we can see that we have added a point. And if I move the mouse around, we see that there is a blue line extending from the point that I made to wherever my cursor is at. And that is an indication of where, so the next time that I click, there's where I'm going to add another node or another point, and where the blue line is, that is where the line is going to be that connects the 2 points. So similar to what you might have learned in geometry, I believe. A point in and of itself, a point by itself, has no area, but when you have 2 points and you connect them, that's what a line is. And so if I click here, for example, we can see that we now have a line, and Figma allows me to continue placing nodes as I see fit, like this, and it connects the node that I lay down there to the previous node that I had, and it just makes a series of straight lines. And if I connect this node that I'm about to place to the canvas, if I click on another node, such as the one that we began with right here, we'll notice that we have a change in the cursor. We'll see a smaller black dot below the cursor, and that indicates that we are completing or closing the path. And when I clicked on that node, the first node that I had there, we will see that there is no blue line coming off of that node anymore, because this path is now complete. And so because this path is complete, or enclosed, meaning it's all the nodes are, there is no single node that isn't connected via line to another node. We have a shape here. This is I'm not sure if this type of polygon has a name, but we've created a polygon using the pen tool. And whenever you are creating vector objects with the pen tool inside of Figma, you enter into the edit object mode. And we know there are a couple of hints that show that we're in the edit object mode. The biggest indicator is that we have this blue done button up here. And when we click that, we will exit the edit object mode. And the other hint that we are in this mode is that, looking at the vector object, every point is I guess, illustrated, or every point is the white circle with the blue outline, the blue stroke. And so that's another indicator that we are inside of the edit object mode. And to get out of the edit object mode, we can, of course, click the done button, or we can press enter. And when we exit the edit object mode, the object that we were editing shows the bounding box, and so that's how we know that we're outside of it. And if we want to get back in to the edit object mode, we can double click the vector, and as we can see here, as indicated by the done button, we've gone back into edit object mode. And the other way to enter that mode is to select the vector layer, which in this case is called vector 2, and press enter. And so enter is the way to get in, and it's the way to get out. And so that is sort of, I guess, that is how to create simple polygons in Figma using the pen tool. And there are a couple of other things we can do, actually many more things we can do inside of edit mode, and they correspond to the different options we have available here in the edit object mode toolbar. And so we have the move tool, we have access to the drawing tools, which of course is the pen as well as the pencil. We have an option where we can bend lines. We can apply Bezier handles to nodes, which I will get to in a moment. And we also have the paint bucket tool. And the paint bucket tool is, I'll go ahead and start with that one because it's pretty much the simplest one. And so we can select the paint bucket tool by clicking here, or the keyboard shortcut B, and it looks like it looks like a drop is the icon that we see here in the canvas. And if we bring the cursor over an enclosed path, in this case our polygon, we will see that on hover we have this blue sort of 45-degree pinstripe effect going on. And if we click inside that area, we'll add a fill. And the fill, it might be difficult to see because we still have this 45-degree blue pinstripe action going on here. So if I go ahead and exit the edit object mode, we'll see that we applied Figma's default fill color, which is hex D9, D9, D9. We've added that fill value to this polygon, and if we want to change it, of course, we can type in a new hex value. We can also click the color picker and choose a value this way, and we also have access to the variety of gradients as well as image, and so we could, we could style this however we pleased. And I believe I forgot to mention this last time. When we are drawing those lines, Figma's default is the basic stroke, which is a 1 point or 1 pixel pure black line. And so to edit that, we can take a look at the stroke section here in the right sidebar, the design panel. We can change the stroke color as well, which might be difficult to see. Let me scrub in a larger value. There we go. And so we can scrub in a new value for the stroke width. Of course, we could type one in as well, and there we go. We can also change the color of the stroke, which makes it easier to see, of course. And so that is how to change the stroke width of the line that you draw with the pen tool. And that is certainly not all. And so I'm going to go ahead and delete this vector object, and we're going to go ahead and start something new here. Jump back to the pen tool, and of course when I click and add a node, we enter into the edit object mode. And let's say that instead of creating nothing but straight lines, we want to add a curve into the mix. We want a line that we're creating to be contoured. And so, whereas just clicking will add it has the stroke style from before. By clicking, we add a single straight line. If we click and drag, we can see that we've created a line that has a curve to it. It has contour. And you will also see, and I'm holding down the left mouse button while I'm doing this, we'll also see that I'm not, or the cursor is not over the node. The node is where I placed it. There are two handles coming off of the node, which are called Bezier handles, and we can tell that when I move it back and forth, the movement on this bottom handle, the one that I'm currently clicking on, is mirrored on the top handle, so it's equal and opposite. And so if I let go there, we have created a line, and the next point that you're going to lay down is also going to have the line is going to have a contour to it as well, because the Bezier handles control line contour on both sides of the node, if that makes sense. And so if I click again, but this time I do not click and drag, we revert to just straight lines. And so if let's see here, I'll go and select my move tool, and if I click on one of these nodes, I can see that I have access to these handles. And so in this way, I don't need to make sure that I don't need the curve to be absolutely correct when I'm just adding nodes and clicking and dragging. I can go back after the fact and click and drag on these handles, and I can change them as I see fit. For example, I can make this Bezier handle longer. However, we can still see that it's sort of mirrored on the other side, not perfectly. The length of the Bezier handle hasn't changed. However, rather the length has changed, but the angle hasn't changed. And so I can edit the curve that way. And if I want to edit, or if I want to change one Bezier handle without affecting the one on the opposite side of it, I'll hold down Option on my MacBook, and by clicking and dragging, I can move just that one Bezier handle and get the effect that I'm looking for, whatever that might be. I'll go ahead and reselect that, and I grab the other one. And yeah, so in that way we have a lot of control over what our curves look like, how our contours appear. And if we wanted to, for example, let's say that I was drawing this, whatever it was, and I decided that I might want this node right here that doesn't have any bend attached to it. If I decide I want to add some bend to it after the fact, I can do that in a few ways. The first way would be to click the Bend tool, and that it has the same cursor. When the Bend tool is active, it has the same cursor as the Move tool. But when I mouse over a node, we'll see that we have sort of a double-headed arrow with a dot in the middle of it. It's difficult to see, and I'm looking at it at full resolution, so I apologize if this is even more of a challenge to see on the stream. However, if I click here, it changes that node, which did not have any Bezier handles. It changed it to a node that does have Bezier handles, and so it gave that node a curve, or it gave the line on either side of it, on both sides of it, I should say, a curve, a contour, because it now has a Bezier handle. And let's see here, if I go back to my Move tool by pressing V, and if I hold down Option when I click on this Bezier handle, I can move it around as I see fit, like I did with this handle up here. And of course, I can drag it to the very center to get rid of that handle. And so in this case, if I wanted only one Bezier handle, if I only wanted the line, in this case, coming out of the bottom of it, then we have access to only the Bezier handle there, because I dragged the Bezier handle that was on top. I dragged it into the node, which basically gets rid of it. And of course, if I wanted it to reappear, I would need to select the Bend tool and click on it again, which returns the other Bezier handle. And so that is how to use your Bezier handles. And so we can make this look like whatever we please. And there are some other cool things that we can do inside of the Edit Object mode with our Move tool. Let's say that you wanted to duplicate a node. Well, let's see here. If I hold down Option, and whenever I move my mouse cursor over a node, we'll see that we have Figma's, I guess, duplicate cursor, which is the black normal cursor, and then a white cursor with a black stroke behind it. That's what we see here, and if I hold down Option when I click and drag, we now have a duplication of that node. And I can go ahead and put that right here. And you may have noticed something, or you might notice something interesting right here. And so Figma, what Figma does, which is really cool and also very helpful, Figma utilizes something called a node network. Whereas I haven't checked, but I'm certain Illustrator does this nowadays. A long time ago, 10 years or so ago, it used to be the case, at least when I was using Illustrator a whole lot, that one node could only have 2 lines coming out of it from any direction, but only 2 lines. And Figma uses, again, something called the node network, wherein as many lines as you want can come out of a single node, which explains what we're seeing here. So we have a line, I'll zoom in a bit. With regard to this node, we have a line coming out of the left, the right, and the bottom, and they are all connected. And so if I select just this node and move it around, we can see that the lines that come out of it all react appropriately because of their Bezier handles and their contours. And so we can create an entire network of nodes in this way. But let's say, for example, that we wanted to add a line to another line, but not necessarily at a node. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Well, I have my Move tool selected, so I'll go ahead and press P to go back to the Pen tool. And, okay, there we go. And let's say that I wanted to add a line coming off of this line right here, maybe right about here. Well, we can see that when I drag the pen tool across this line, it adds, or it shows the white circle with the blue outline all across when I scan the mouse cursor over this, it has the little image of a node on the center of the stroke. And it also changes the icon to have a little plus symbol right below it. And so if I click here, it adds a node. And as we can see, I can then draw a line from that new node to wherever I please, maybe there, and connect it at that node. And so all of this together is one large node network. As we can see here, looking in the layers panel, the left sidebar, we're still working on the same vector called vector 2. And very interestingly enough, well, not interesting, if we wanted to add a fill to each one of these, as we can see, because each one of these areas is enclosed, each one of these areas can have its own fill. And so in that way, we can make some pretty cool looking illustrations if we wanted to. And I have no idea what I drew here. I certainly didn't mean to draw it like this. I'm not sure what this is supposed to be, but we can change whatever we want this to look like. Something like that. Again, I have no idea what this is, but that is how to create your node network. And so far I've demonstrated how to add nodes. However, what if we wanted to delete a node without, of course, deleting the whole thing? Well, we would select our pen tool and we would find the node that we don't want anymore. And if I hold down the Option key, basically, as you can tell so far, everything revolves around the Option key, more or less. With the pen tool selected, if I move the cursor over a node I want to get rid of and hold down the Option key, we can see that there is a minus symbol below the cursor, and if I click that, it got rid of that node. And this is still an enclosed space because this line connects these two nodes, or this line right here connects these two nodes, so this is a closed space. However, if I undo, we'll see that we in fact got rid of that node. And if I get rid of this node, it'll still be connected, and I can get rid of this node. And we can see that when I got rid of that node, it disrupted the node network. And so be careful when you're getting rid of nodes. And of course, you can always Command Z or Control Z or edit, undo your way out of things as you need to. And so that is essentially all there is to the pen tool. And it may seem simple, and certainly the concepts involved in using the pen tool are simple. However, it does take a good amount of practice to become proficient at using the pen tool. And if you enjoy digital art or digital illustrations, very often at one point the illustrator probably used the pen tool, especially in the case where the illustrator wants to create vector art and vector, because all of this is math, and so it's you could scale this up to just any resolution that you wanted to, and it would always stay completely crisp, unlike a JPEG or a GIF or a PNG or any other bitmap type of image. Vectors are, again, they're made of math and points and all that good stuff, and so they're infinitely scalable. And so very often, there's a reason all your icons, or the icons that you engage with as, when you're working on your UI, they're always vectors. They're always like .svgs, for example, scalable vector graphic. And very often illustrators, well, not all the time, but illustrators will use the pen tool and other vector tools to create artwork that can be, it can be scaled as small as a stamp, but it could also be scaled up to the size of a billboard if needed, with absolutely no additional work on their part. So very, very cool stuff. And Figma, while not being advertised as a drawing tool or some sort of illustration software, certainly there are loads of artists who make some really interesting stuff inside of Figma. And if you do a Google search for Figma art, you'll see some truly incredible artwork that people have been able to come up with. Just really just awesome stuff, I should say. And so my advice would be, I'm going to go and get out of edit mode to get rid of that. My advice would be, or my advice for those looking to become more proficient in using the pen tool would be to just practice, practice, practice. And I have found, at least for myself, a good way of practicing is to do tracings. And a good way to start with that would be to go to Google image search or whatever your favorite image search engine happens to be, and find doesn't necessarily have to be a simple image, but an image with high enough contrast where you can easily trace it. And that could be any number of subjects that you want to trace. However, for me, what I find that works best whenever I want to trace something is I'll usually choose something that's already been drawn, possibly on paper or something like that. Video game sprites or video game art is fun to trace. And for the end of this stream, or for the next section of this stream, I found a picture of, if I could zoom out, I found a very well done picture of Snoopy. Joe Cool himself from iHeartCraftyThings.com, a woman named Carolyn, wrote a blog post about how to illustrate Snoopy. And when I saw this image, I thought that is perfect. This is just the right level of complexity and detail that someone who is new to learning how the pen tool would work would have a pretty good time, or at least a pretty educational time doing a tracing of this image. And it has everything we're looking for. The curves are pretty simple, nothing outlandish here. The stroke width is the same throughout all of it, and again, overall, it's high enough res, but it's also not complicated, and so this would be a great place to start. And for the rest of the stream, I will go ahead and do a trace of this using the pen tool. I'll use the shape tool in a few places, and I'll explain why when I get to them. However, yeah, this is going to be pretty fun. I did this last night, and it turned out pretty well. And we'll compare the two at the end. I have the old one here, locked and invisible, and a frame that's further off to the right. And excuse me, my advice would be when you're going to trace something, so drop your image into the canvas, select the image layer, which I placed in a frame for some reason, and I would go ahead and lock it. And what locking does is you can select the layer in the layers panel, but it's non-selectable. You cannot select this layer from the canvas when the layer is locked. And so you can, it gets rid of any accidental moving of this image. And as you would know, if you've ever done any tracing before, if the image that you're tracing moves, it can be difficult to get it back to where it needs to be to continue tracing correctly. And so by locking this in place, we don't have to worry about that. My other piece of advice would be to lower the opacity to maybe something like 33%, something that's low enough to where the line that you're drawing on top of it is easily distinguishable from the line that's below it. And since I'm going to, the line I'm going to draw is going to be a black line, the stroke is going to be black. If this were at 100% opacity, it would be easily lost on top of the black stroke that Snoopy already has here. And so by lowering the opacity, it's easier to see. And so I'm going to zoom in a bit, and a question that might come up is, where do I start? And by that, it's quite literally, where on Snoopy would I start the tracing? And really and truly, you can start adding nodes anywhere that you see fit. And I sometimes when I'm trying to figure out a good place to start adding nodes, I look for terminating lines or lines that don't have any other node, or I look for where a node would be where no lines coming off of it. And so this portion of the ear here, also this portion right here, and maybe this arm will be drawn separately. The tail is good, and also the toes, or possibly this foot right here, would be good places to start. And just like previous stream, I'm going to start with the ear here, and I'm going to press P to select my pen tool, and I'm going to add a node right here. And let's see here, before I go any further, I'm going to change the stroke properties because they're going to be far too large for what we're doing. And so let's go ahead and change the stroke size to, I don't know, 5? What's that look like? Maybe 8? Yeah, 8 looks good. And then I'm going to go ahead and change the stroke color to, let's see here, you can choose whatever you want. I'm going to see, I might regret this choice, but I'm going to use pure red. And so we are ready to begin. I have the first node where I like it, and I'm going to click and drag to create a line with a contour, a bit of an arc right there. And I'm going to, again, click and drag, let's see here, right there. And my advice would be, just to pause real quickly, another piece of advice I would have is, just like with that odd polygon we drew a little bit to the left earlier, I would not concentrate on making this perfect the first time around. And the reason for that is, in my experience, it's, if not more satisfying, just it's nicer to get done with the entire trace, even if it's rough, and then touch it up after the fact, because you can always go back into edit object mode, select the Bezier handles, and perfect your lines or add additional nodes where needed. And so while I'm drawing this, or while I'm tracing this, I should say, I'm not at all concerned about perfection, because that's something we can worry about after the fact. And of course, you may have a different system of doing things. You may shoot for perfection while you're doing your trace, and that's completely fine. The outcome is going to be the same, and so I wouldn't worry too much about the actual process. Just know what works and know what works for you, and use your system. And so I'll go ahead and add another line there. something like, again, doesn't have to be perfect, something like that. Okay, add another one here, and then add the last one right here. And I can tell that when I click and create this node, because the Bezier handle is so tall or is so long, it's going to be, it's going to create something like that, and that's not going to work. And so I'm done with this line segment. So I'm going to, actually I could have pressed escape. I'm going to select this node that I just created. I'm going to, let's see, I'll zoom in a bit so it might be easier to see. I'm going to grab this Bezier handle, I'm going to move it down, and it sort of flies out a bit right here, and this Bezier handle is to blame for that. And so I'm going to zoom out just a skosh here. I'm going to move that in. I'm also going to, let's see here, I'm going to change the angle, but I'm also going to change the height of the Bezier handle. And same story with the Bezier handle below it. So I'm going to bring the height in a bit and adjust. There we go. Okay, so that's not perfect, but again, that's not exactly what we're shooting for at this point in time. And we can also see that in the actual image of Snoopy, if this were drawn with the way they drew it, their cap is rounded and our cap is just lopped off. And that's something we can change by going to the options, the advanced stroke settings here, and choosing endpoint. We want to change that to round, and we can see that we now have a round end, or a round cap if you're used to the jargon from Illustrator. And whoops, let's see here, we have a round endpoint, and let's see here. Change that for both of them. There we go. Okay, perfect. And that's that's looking a lot better. Go ahead and scooch that over just a skosh. And again, I'll say this many times, doesn't need to be perfect. And so this line is as good as I'm going to work on it right now. And so I'm still in edit object mode, and so I can press P, or again click the pen tool here, and I want to add a node at this line right about here, so I can continue drawing Snoopy's the top portion of the head here. And so I'm going to click when I see where I want the node to be, and I see that we have the little plus icon below the cursor. So I'm going to click here, click at the top of the head, do something like that. I made my node a bit too tall, and let's see here, I'm going to click there. And I can tell that, you know, the skull is a little bit large, and again, that is because of the Bezier handles are a little bit out of control. But I'm not worried about that right now. I'm going to fix that at the end. And so I'm going to, because this line is straight, I'm going to, or I'm holding down Shift to keep it perfect along, or I'm going to keep it straight along the horizontal axis. And where the bend starts again, I'm going to click to add another node there. And then, let's see, I can get away with a rather large, I thought I could get away with that. Yeah, I can get away with that. Let's see here. Click there, press escape, select the move tool. I want to edit this Bezier curve. I'm going to bring it up and out to about right there. I'm going to click here to edit. Let's see here, this Bezier handle, move it to about right there. It's not exactly perfect, but again, we're not shooting for perfection, and while I'm at it, might as well change this one. There, looking better. And still in edit object mode, I will select pen tool again so I can continue to add nodes and points. I want to start making more lines from this node here, and so I see that the icon or the cursor is correct. So I'll click there, and let's see here, I'll go right to the collar, click and drag. I can tell we're a little bit sharp right here, but that's something I can fix after the fact. And that looks good. And as far as the collar is concerned, I'm not going to draw the collar using the pen tool. This is a rectangle shape. This is just a rectangle with a stroke around it, and so I'm not going to try to recreate that with the pen tool because there's a better tool for that, rectangle tool, and I'll add that toward the end. And so I'll just go ahead and click here where the next line for the body starts, and then let's see here, I'll click add another node here, click and drag as I go around. Let's see here, the belly, and let's see here, I'll click here. I reckon I can get that. Yeah, there we go. And it's a bit sharp right here, but again, we can change that after the fact. And I'm going to press escape and then click that node so I don't have to bring the Bezier handle into the node to get rid of it. I can just do it that way by pressing escape and then adding another line from the node that's already there. I want to put a little bit of contour there, and let's see here, press escape again, go back to that node, and as I'm coming around the top part of the paw, let's see here, that's looking pretty good. Do something like that. I'll click here. There we go. We're coming around the bottom of the foot here. We're doing all right. Let's see here. That's not perfect, but let's see here. I press escape, select my move tool, click that node right there, move this Bezier handle in a bit. Same story with that handle. There we go. That looks a bit better for the foot. Reselect the pen tool. Click on that node to continue where I left off, and this line right here, that's a completely vertical line, and it's off by a little bit, but I can move these nodes after I'm done, and so I'll click there, and then let's see here, I'll click here on the back, something like that. And again, I'm not worried about the collar. I'm going to use a rectangle to take care of that. And then when I see the little plus sign below the cursor, I know I can click right there on the line, and there we go. That is an enclosed vector. That's an enclosed shape. And so I'm going to select this vector, or select this node right here, move it down a bit, fix some of my mistakes. There we go. Okay, and again, we're not aiming for perfection. Let's see here. I'll hold Shift to make sure everything looks good. Bring that Bezier handle down just a skosh. Bring that Bezier handle out just a bit. Okay. Yeah. And let's see here. Bring that out just a... Well, it's out enough. I should bring that down maybe a bit. Okay. Yeah, looking good. And I remember saying something is sharp. Yeah, so that's a sharp point right there. And the reason this point looks sharp is because these Bezier handles are not mirrored in their angle, and so let's see here. I'm going to select the top Bezier curve. The top curve. Let's see here. I think I'll have to add an additional node, which is fine. And let's see here. I have it turned on in my preferences to snap, and so it might be difficult to see on stream, but I'm holding on to the Bezier handle, and it's blue, but when it gets here, it snaps into place and it turns red or dark red. It might be difficult to see, and that is because it's in line with it has the same angle, it's mirrored angle-wise for the other handle, and so that's going to smooth out the area on the left and the right of that node. And so I can tell that it looks like this would be benefited by adding an additional node here. And then let's see, I'm going to select it and move it there-ish. Move this handle down. Okay, yeah, we're looking a bit better. Move that handle up. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to press enter to get out of edit mode, my edit object mode. Okay, yeah, we're a bit off right here as far as maybe where the end of the mouth would be, but again, not worried about that, and not worried about the collar because I don't care. The collar, I don't care about the node right here. I'm going to use a rectangle to have a collar right here, and it's going to go on top of this little error, so I'm not worried about it. And let's continue on. Let's see here, I'll grab the pen tool, and let's see here, go back into edit object mode by pressing enter, and I want to work on this foot. I'll add the toes, and then finally the tail, arm, and the spot there, and then I'll work on the other features in his top half when I'm done with that. And so I'll go ahead and click right here, and click right here, something like that. There we go. Again, not shooting for perfection. Let's see here. That's going to be a bit of an extreme angle, so I'll click there. I know that goes out too far. Again, I'll fix that in a minute. Go ahead and click right there. Okay, and then for the toe, I can click there. And it's a sort of, it's nice to know where it is, but it's sort of annoying that I wouldn't turn it off because I don't find it annoying enough, but we can see where my cursor is, and where I want to put the new node is kind of close to the midpoint of the line where Figma suggests putting a node. And so I need to zoom, in order not to snap to that node, I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so I can place it right here, which, while it is close, it's not exactly where I wanted it to be. And so let's see here, I'm going to move that node up just a little bit, and I'm going to hold down Command and click that node, which makes it that holding down Command and clicking a node is the same thing as having the bend tool activated, or the bend tool selected and then clicking a node. It may be difficult to tell that anything changed. However, it added a Bezier handle, and so I can do that. And let's see here, let's go ahead and move that down a bit. Okay, and while I'm here, I'm going to bring that down, give it a bend, not like that. Let's see here, rein that toe bend in. Let's see here, scooch that in a bit, very good. And it's this Bezier handle I wanted. There we go. Okay, that one goes out too far. This Bezier handle definitely goes out too far, but that's also an issue with the node placement. Let's bring that in. Okay, yeah, looking much better. Okay, and I'll go ahead and stay zoomed in for the remainder of this portion while I finish the toes. So click here, and let's see here, probably about there. Whoop. It's hard to see, isn't it? Let's zoom out. Just a skosh there. Actually, that's not bad. I'm going to select it. Select that node so I can edit the Bezier handle. Maybe move that down a bit, something like that. Okay, looking good. On to the next. Click, click, drag. And there we go. Okay, very good. And let's see here. I'm going to scroll up a bit, and the tail is next. And so I'm going to click here on this line to add a new node to the node network. Click here, click here. That's just a simple, there we go, looking good. And I don't want a tail that has a goofy contour at the end like that, so I'm going to press escape. Click here, and there we go, something like that. And I know that, well, let's see here. Yeah. Want to, let's see here, I can round that off in another way. And so let's see here, we can also I guess I should have mentioned this a while ago, we can also add a corner radius as we see fit, and so we can do something like that, which looks a little bit better. However, there should be more bend to the tail, and so I'm going to go ahead and add an additional node right there. Back to the move tool, move that down. Move this node. Oop. Let's see here. There we go. I'm going to move that node out a bit. I'm going to move that Bezier handle just a bit like that. Okay, looking a lot better. Okay, and now on to the arm. So back to the pen tool. We're still in edit object mode. This almost looks like a straight line, but it's not. There is some curvature to it. So I'm going to click and drag right there. Click and drag there. Click and drag. Oop. Let's see here. Click and drag there, and I can tell that my Bezier handles are making things look kind of funny down there. That's fine. I'm going to press escape, then go back to the pen tool. Something like that. And then, yeah, something like that. Okay, and let's see here. Press escape. I'm going to use my select tool, select this node right here, and there we go. Change the Bezier. Change the Bezier handles. Move that down just a skosh. There we go. And yeah, this line's out of control, and so I'm going to change. I'm holding down options because I only want to move this top Bezier handle. I like the angle it has on the bottom, and so I'm going to change it right there. Okay, looking good. And then let's draw for the paw, just a simple angle, something like that. I like the angle, but I don't like, let's see here. Let's move this one up a bit. Yeah, that looks good. Same story with this paw, or this toe of this paw. Let's see here. I put the note at the wrong place where it connects to the forelimb. Okay, let's move that over a bit, something like, yeah, something like that. It's not bad. And again, you could spend quite a while editing this if you really wanted to. Let's see here, but that looks good. That looks good for now. Okay, and then let's see here, and I'm going to change the cap on all of these to rounded. I can do that at the end just by selecting everything. And so then we have his spot right here, and it looks like I'm off a little bit. Bring that in. Let's not do that. Okay, so as far as the spot's concerned, I will draw a line there and just draw another line here, but I'll click and drag, something like that. Okay, and this would be an instance where we could use the paint bucket tool, which we can access by clicking up here in the toolbar, paint bucket, or we can press B as keyboard shortcut. And because this is an enclosed space, I can click here, and it added a fill of the default Figma fill color, and so I want that to be black, so I'll just type 0 once and press enter. And we have a black fill there. Everything else is looking good enough for right now. Okay, and let's see here, I'm gonna go back to my select tool, and yeah, looking all right. And let's see here, what's next, what's next, what's next? Okay, so we have 4 things. I'm going to exit the edit object mode. 4 things I haven't done yet. So we have the eye, we have the spot on the ear, and we have the nose. So this would be an instance where it would be wise to, in my opinion anyway, it would be wise not to use the pen tool to create those shapes. You certainly could. However, to stay true to the image, it would be more appropriate to use the ellipse tool, because these are perfect ellipses. They're in this case, it's just sort of a narrow ellipse. This is a narrow ellipse that is sort of rotated a bit, and then his nose here is, we'll use an ellipse for that, but it's just a proportional 1-to-1, so it's just a circle, and then we can add the little reflection right here with another ellipse, and then we'll use a rectangle tool, or we'll use the, rectangle shape tool to take care of the collar. And so we'll start with the eye first. I will press O to select my ellipse tool, and I'm going to draw it off to the side first. I want to make sure I get the height correct. Let's see here. Actually, yeah, dead on. And so I'll put it there. Whoop. Change the fill to jet black or pure black, and then we have another ellipse here for the ear, and so I'm just going to draw something like that. Give it a rotate. Let's see here. Oh, not bad, kind of close. Let's make that a bit bigger. I'm just sort of lining it up as best I can. That's not bad at all. Okay, change that fill to black. Move over to the nose, and let's see here. Okay, there's a couple of ways of going about doing this. You of course could use the pen tool if you wanted to create a note here, and then create a note here, maybe an additional one in the middle if you wanted to get it perfect with your Bezier handles. Or we could use, we could draw an ellipse and then draw a much larger ellipse and use a Boolean selection to the Boolean subtract selection to end up with this sort of semicircle shape, which I believe is what we'll do. And so I'll go ahead and draw the nose. Let's see here. That's about right. Let's see here. I'm going to give that a color, something very visible, something like that. And then I'm going to draw the much larger circle, so I have something that can subtract from this shape. And so make sure I have the ellipse tool selected again. Draw a big circle. I want this circle to, so let's see here, I'll move that to the side. Well, hide that for a second. So this area that's in blue is pretty much a part of a circle anyway. This is almost like this is the arc of a circle, and so I'm trying to size this to where it lines up fairly well and so that needs to be just a little bit larger. I'm holding down shift so I can keep my proportion. Just maybe a tiny bit larger. Whoop. Yeah, something like that. Okay, and I hid that ellipse, but I'm going to bring it back. And I'm going to select the two of these, and I want to perform a Boolean operation, a Boolean function. And so with both of these layers selected, I'll come up to the Boolean groups, and I will select subtract selection, which subtracts it subtracts the path or the shape of the top layer from the second layer, and so I'm left with this bit here. However, I subtracted a bit too much, so I'm going to back that shape off. That looks good. It doesn't have to be perfect because some of these things are going to overlap and mistakes will be hidden that way. And so do a subtract there. Okay, looking good. And let's go ahead and make that the black color it needs to be. And I noticed there was a bit of reflection at the top of the nose. So let's see here. To find out where that is, I'm going to temporarily change the opacity in the fill to, I don't know, 20%, doesn't matter. And I can see where it is. And so I'm going to select my ellipse tool again. Okay, it's not quite tall enough, but it's a bit too wide, so something like that. Okay, and that has let's just give it a fill of white, and I'm going to bring the opacity of the nose back up to 100. Okay, there we go. And let's see here. Because it's getting a bit distracting, I'm going to, let's see here, I'm going to change the stroke of the Snoopy body to black because we're closer to the end. But before I do that, I want to clean up any mistakes that I may have. And so let's see here. This is a bit sharp right here, and so I'm going to put just the smallest amount of corner radius on there. I'm going to move this node down just a tiny bit there. Okay, maybe move that Bezier handle. Move this Bezier handle in. Okay, it's looking good so far. Let's see here. I feel like this Bezier handle, or I feel like this node is a bit too far out. So let's go ahead and bring that in just a bit. Okay, everything else is looking pretty good. Oop, go away. And I thought I saw a problem with this ear. Yeah, this ear is a bit too droopy, so I'm gonna grab the Bezier handle and move that in a bit while keeping the angle mirrored. Let's see here. The top of the head's a little bit out of control, so I'm gonna select that node and bring it down. The Bezier handles look fine. I'm not worried about the contour. And then let's see here. Oh yeah, and if you want to, of course, with nothing but in edit mode, if you want to select more than, with your select tool, you can select more than one node if you want to, that way. And let's see here, I want to select both of these, move them down. I'm going to hold shift while I move it down. Yeah, looking good. Okay, I'm not worried about the contour of the abdomen so much. Okay, looking good. And okay, it's mixed, of course. And let's see here, endpoints are all going to be rounded, which we can see here, rounded off these points, added a round cap to all the toes as well. Okay, yeah, we're looking good. That tail could be a bit more like that. Okay, and then let's go ahead and change this stroke to black. And then the last thing I need to do is work on the collar. And so I will select my rectangle tool by pressing R. Well, no, sorry, I'm in edit mode, edit object mode, so let's press done. Now press R to select the rectangle shape tool, and I need to create a rectangle for Snoopy's collar. And so I draw the rectangle, I'm gonna move it down a bit, line it up. Ooh, actually that looks like the perfect angle. Okay, very good. And then the stroke width that we have for the body is 8, and I'm going to use the same stroke here, so we'll add a stroke, give it a stroke of 8. I'm going to change that to the center. Well, no, actually, keep it on the inside, actually. Keep it on the inside, and let's see here, go to my stroke options. I want my joins to be, well, the joins don't matter. Let's see here. Stroke style solid, endpoints looking good, and let's put a corner radius of, I'm trying to match the collar, something like, what is that, 9? Let's make it 10. And the fill, let's see here. Okay, so I can't grab the fill color using the eyedropper tool from the image because the image it has some opacity, or has a lowered opacity. And so I'm going to go ahead and select the layer that has the image. We locked it, and I guess I can keep it locked. The opacity is set to 33%. I'm going to bring that up to 100. Select my rectangle shape here and fill. I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to grab the red that's used and bring it over. It's just a bit too tall, but that's fine. I'm going to place it where it should be. I'm going to hide the Snoopy. Well, let's see, let's bring it back, but let's lower the frame that has the image. Let's lower that back to 33. And there are still some issues going on. Whoop, I'm just tapping keys at random here. There are still some issues going on regarding the ears. However, I'm not overly concerned with making them perfect, of course. Okay, and there we go. I'm going to go ahead and select the frame that holds the Snoopy image, and I'm going to unlock it, and I'm going to move it. Let's see here, we're going to bump the opacity of the frame back up to 100. Move this over. Oop, didn't mean to duplicate it, sorry. I'm going to move it over here to the left, and the tracing that we created is here on the right. The only thing that's a bit off about it is it has no fill, and so I will select the vector. It's still called vector 2. Press enter to enter the edit object mode. I will select my paint bucket tool, and let's see here, I will click here, but I should change my fill color to, there we go, change my fill color to white, and there we go. That is how to do that. And as we can see here, it's not entirely perfect. The ear is a bit funny compared to how it is over here. The collar is a bit, let's see here, I guess I can fix that. There we go. The collar is a bit too tall, and the angle might be slightly off on it. Let's see here. The rest of it's not bad. I can see there's some weirdness with the top of the head here, and again, the ear is not perfect, but everything else is yeah, looking pretty good. And so that is an example of how. Oh, I missed a fill, didn't I? Let's see here. Grab my paint bucket tool. I forgot to color in this leg, and so let's give it fill, change that back to white. Okay, there we go. And so, yeah, that is an example of how to practice your pen tool by tracing an image that you find online. And of course, it doesn't necessarily have to be that of a beloved cartoon figure. You could find, pictures from nature or fine art or anything that you have a fancy for, and do a tracing that way. And of course, if you're just starting out, I would recommend maybe sticking with something a bit simpler, like Joe Cool here. However, you can always build up to more complex things, provided that you have the time and the patience. And so, if you can't finish it all in one go, just save your file. Of course, Figma saves automatically, and then come back to it at a later time, and you can create some pretty cool stuff in Figma. Some really neat digital illustrations. And of course, if you wanted to, of course, there's an issue right here. It's a bit sharp, but again, I'm not too worried about it. These are pretty much ready for handoff. All you would need to do is, you have your, because I added some ellipses and I used some Boolean operations and whatnot, all of this, those are outside of the vector network, and so you can see that there are parts of this that are not connected to Snoopy. So if we wanted to hand this off to our dev team, we would need to do a Command E and go ahead and flatten that into a vector, and then it's also combining a lot of different stroke styles here as well, and so we want to go ahead and clear this up, edit our fill style right here, make sure everything lines up as it should be, or we could just use the pen tool, for example, to complete the nose that way. Yeah, you could just save that as a .svg, and of course, let's see, to do that, you would just, ideally this would be flattened to one layer, go to export, and this would say export one layer, of course, or if you put it in a frame, whatever the name of the frame is, you change that to SVG, and you could export this as a scalable vector graphic, a .svg, so you could, it would have it'd be capable of infinite resolution. But yeah, that's how you would get it web ready or app ready. And so I hope you enjoyed this demonstration of the pen tool. It's not the easiest tool in the world to explain, and when I first started using tools like this, when I first started using Illustrator 16 years ago, 18 years ago, YouTube wasn't a thing yet, and so I had to learn the pen tool by myself without anyone to aid me in that educational voyage, and it was very difficult to figure it out on my own as a 12 or 13-year-old, and so however old I am right now, and so I hope this helped. If there are any questions, of course, feel free to send me a message on Twitch. I'm usually quick to respond. And speaking of Twitch, feel free to go ahead and subscribe to me, and you can sign up for notifications to receive a message whenever I go live. I try to do, at the very least, 2 streams a week, typically at 7:30 Central Standard Time on, Tuesdays and Fridays, usually Figma Fridays. And of course, you can find me at the typical places for the education track on Skype, Discord, and Slack, Discord, and Skype. And you can also check out my new, it's still growing, not a whole lot of videos there yet. I will upload this video when it's done. My YouTube channel, the YouTube name or the channel name is Show Me UX, because I'm in the Show Me state now. And yeah, you can also drop me a message there. And yeah, I hope everyone has a safe, fun rest of their weekend, and yeah, I'll see you next week. Have a good one.